Many of you guys know Elliot, and so you may be already sympathetic to our cause. But there's a big question. You may have kind of answered it, but I'd love to have you guys just address it again. Part of I read the press release. That's where most of my questions actually came from. It's interesting, the idea of saving business. That's gonna be the second question. But the idea of saving society and humanity and having that be the role of business, I could see some skepticism with regard to. I mean, is that the role? That hasn't been the role of business for a long time. Should it be the role of business to help save society and humanity?
I mean, the way that I answer it is to say that it is perhaps erroneous to make the assumption that this sort of saving activity is something that is a sort of direct action that business is taking. What I think what I'm really after is this idea that if business really acts in a human way, if it really cares about the human constituents, right, that things will be significantly better for it, right? Now, I mean, I use the word save because I actually happen to care a great deal for business. I don't think that I would have personally been able to accomplish anything if it weren't for, the opportunity to be an entrepreneur. Lord knows nobody wanted to employ me, whether they were public institutions or private.
Is this the story of Big White Skies?
Yeah, right, yeah, no, this is the story of my oddity. But no, so I'm appreciative of the fact that business was there to do this, and I don't want to see it go away because of that. But I also recognize, like we've all been acknowledging, that for better or worse, we all interact with business all day, every day. I mean, unless we're on Walden, which who is, we got to deal with this thing. And so, I'm trying to save it from itself. I would like to see us work together to save it from itself, yeah. Right? And then in terms of this question of culture, how it fits into the bigger culture and what's that doing for the rest of us, I can't help but think, again, under the McLuhan idea that we shape our tools and thereafter our tools shape us, that the experiences that we have every day with the workplace, with the businesses, when we call customer service and spend 2 hours on the phone and are treated in a humiliating fashion, the sort of aggregate of all of that, all of those interactions has a profoundly deleterious effect on, there's your word.
I know that one.
Yeah. Destructive.
Unfortunate at the very least.
Yes.
It does.
So there you go.
It's like scar tissue. It just keeps building.
At minimum, let's stop hurting ourselves, right?
Do you have any thoughts on the question?
I do. I believe in what I call the quadruple, I can't say it.
Quadruple.
Bottom line of business. Where the first bottom line is the financial bottom line. The second bottom line is how you treat your employees. The third is how do you treat community that your business is based in. And the fourth is the ability to honor God. And that's what I always look for, a quadruple bottom line. Business is the minimum of 3 bottom lines, but there isn't any great business. I've always said that I love putting great people together, and when you put businesses together, businesses can actually create community, and communities can change the world. So.
The other question that I wanted to ask you guys, the idea again of maybe business itself not surviving. I remember when we were at coffee, and I was like, that really seems pretty far-fetched. I mean, all of the stuff in here was made by a business, and many of us make a living via business. It's how it's one of the reasons we went to work in the first place, was simply to earn money so that we wouldn't be like foraging out in the forest or whatever, right? So, but the idea that it could someday actually die, I have a little bit of a hard time with it, only because it seems like folks in power would just continue to square the circle, so to speak. They would just continue to, and you're shaking your head no, and I want to hear what you think about that.
I meet businesses every day that are already dead. The only thing that's stopping them from dying is an investor. They never had customers. There was nothing sustainable. And we have businesses that absolutely are just sucking money from investors that are never going to see the return. And unfortunately, we do too much of that. When I sat back, and I've sat in situations where I've been paid a lot of money to save something, and what I realized is this is never going to be saved. And actually, I'm just hurting people by this thing going on. Somebody's got to tell them to die. But we got to create something new that's going to live. And that's what we've got to do. And I'll tell you, there's probably, I would say 90% of the businesses I look at are not going to be around long term. I'll say the same numbers whenever I look at incubators. And I know we have experts here in that area. We've got to understand that we're creating things that sometimes don't need to exist. Somebody thought they needed to. They're not helping anybody. And when I sit with people who literally are thinking about suicide because their parents have lost everything to help their dream, that's not a good thing. And grandma is not getting the money. And I'm just telling you, we got to get real.
So right, business may not be dead right now, but it's kind of a zombie, right? And there are all kinds of scenarios under which business dies in an unconventional sense, like death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of things, where we have such animus toward business in general, such mistrust that the entire relationship between, business and the consumer, or just culture at large, is one that is completely typified by animus and rancor and disgust and pain and loathing and so forth. And like I say, I don't know that we're all that far away from that presently. Now, is that business continuing to exist? I suppose, but not in a way that I think anybody likes or cares about or thinks is sustainable. Yeah. And again, I do reiterate that, in the time scale of the sum total of human history, right, which is a lot of many years, the amount of time during which we've had, mercantile and then business in the modern sense is just a tiny little fraction of that time. And so to assume that it's inevitable that it will just continue to exist or get better is certainly not borne out by the historical record, right? We have lots of reasons to believe that there could be, a collapse.